From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Wednesday, December the 11th, 2024. The IDF conducted a major military campaign against strategic targets, it said, in Syria over the last 2 days. The Israeli Air Force and Navy carrying out together over 350 strikes, destroying the majority of military capabilities, it said, of the fallen Assad regime. The IDF said in 48 hours, the IDF struck most of the strategic weapons stockpiles in Syria to prevent them from falling into the hands of terrorist elements. The targets hit include Syrian Navy facilities, dozens of long-range missiles, anti-aircraft batteries, and dozens of weapons production sites in Damascus and other cities in Syria, as well as drones, fighter jets, attack helicopters, radars, tanks, and more. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying, "We have no intention of interfering in Syria's internal affairs. However, we do intend to do what is necessary for our security. As such, I approve the Air Force bombing of strategic military capabilities left by the Syrian military so that they will not fall into the hands of the jihadists. We want to have relations with the new regime in Syria, but if this regime allows Iran to reestablish itself in Syria or allows the transfer of Iranian weapons or weapons of any kind to Hezbollah or attacks us, we will respond forcefully and we will exact a heavy price." U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken left for the Middle East today to meet with leaders in Jordan and Turkey to discuss developments in Syria, Israel, Gaza, Lebanon, and across the region, the State Department said, saying Blinken will reiterate the United States' support for an inclusive Syrian-led transition to an accountable and representative government. He will discuss the need for the transition process and new government in Syria to respect the rights of minorities, facilitate the flow of humanitarian assistance, prevent Syria from being used as a base of terrorism or posing a threat to its neighbors, and ensure that chemical weapon stockpiles are secured and safely destroyed. Saying Blinken will also discuss the urgent need to conclude a ceasefire agreement in Gaza that secures the release of hostages, facilitate additional humanitarian assistance to vulnerable Palestinian civilians, and continue to implement the cessation of hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah. The 100 hostages still held in Gaza have now been captive for 432 days. And the IDF continues its operations in Gaza and said this morning that 2 senior commanders of terror group Hamas were eliminated in 2 separate airstrikes. One of those commanders led the attack on an IDF outpost on the Gazan border fence in southern Israel on October the 7th, the IDF said, during which 14 IDF soldiers were killed. The other was the head of Hamas's paragliding unit, who led Hamas's aerial infiltration into communities in southern Israel on October the 7th, a key part of Hamas's murderous attacks on Israeli civilians. The IDF vowing we will continue to operate against all terrorists who took part in the October 7th massacre. And 4 rockets were fired from Gaza at southern Israel early this morning, the IDF saying 2 were intercepted. The other were said to have fallen in open areas. Turning now to Australia, where today a car was set on fire and 2 properties were spray painted with hateful and threatening anti-Israel messages in Sydney. This just days after an arson attack at a synagogue in Melbourne. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese called this latest incident an outrage, saying, "I stand with the Jewish community and unequivocally condemn this attack. There is no place for hatred or anti-Semitism in our community." And vandals tried to break into the Hillel building at San Francisco State University on Sunday night, which they vandalized with the words "death to imperialism," as well as with an ancient anti-Jewish reference. The Jewish Community Relations Council of the Bay Area saying the graffiti referenced in the attack, the word Khaybar, is a historic region in 7th century Arabia, where a battle between Muslims and Jews resulted in the mass expulsion and slaughter of the Jewish community. This deeply problematic reference not only shifts the complex Israeli-Palestinian conflict into a religious battle between Islam and Judaism, but also carries an implicit threat of armed violence or forcible expulsion against Jews today. Hillel, the Center for Jewish Life on university campuses worldwide, is a pillar in supporting Jewish identity, education, and community for students. The JCRC thanking the schools and local police for removing the graffiti, and it wrote the school's president, Lynn Mahoney, for responding quickly to the incident. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Wednesday, December the 11th. At 7 o'clock, David Harris speaks with Iraqi-American activist Sarah Idan. At 7:30, Rabbi Ammiel Hirsch offers insights about the interplay between divine prophecy and human imagination. At 8, Rabbi Andrea Weiss leads a nonpartisan discussion on finding common ground and fostering civic engagement through a religious lens in a program of Central Synagogue. At 9, former Congressman Steve Israel is on l'chaim. At 10, a replay of Rabbi Hirsch. At 10:30, an encore of the news. And coming up next, it's Thinking Out Loud. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, December the 11th, 2024. I'm Teisha Bader. Am Yisrael Chai.